Join me today as we answer a fan question. What exactly do I dislike about GenCon? Welcome to the Geek Cabal channel. My name is Bob, and today we're going to be answering a question from a previous video, which was a response to someone else's video. And the question, the original video, my response, and our response, and the video that I was responding to will both be linked down in the description or up here somewhere. And definitely you should check out the other gentleman's video. Well, one, to know what I'm talking about, but two, he did respond to ours, and it was a very gracious response. So, you know, didn't take it personally or anything, and it wasn't meant to be personal. So, you know, I'm glad he didn't. So check that out, and I'll probably also partially answer this question because I believe in that video I did actually say, hey, he's not wrong on some of this stuff as far as it being an issue. I disagree with the scale and the solution put forth, or at least the specifics of it, but he's not wrong on some of the things. So, the question that was put forth in one of the comments, or well, the request was, could I do a video? However, scheduling's a bit of an issue at the moment, so you're getting just me at the moment. What issues do we have with GenCon? And I made a list because I tried recording this video once before, and it ended up being some 40-minute monstrosity. So I'm pretty sure just meandered all over the place. So in an effort to avoid that, I made a very short list, is most of what I talked about in the other video, but trying to stay on point here. So I'm going to talk about the things that I did not talk about in the other video, or at least I think I didn't. We'll get to those towards the end, so I get the new stuff here first in case you've already seen the other video. Alright, and some of these things, I'll talk about the things I think can actually be fixed, the things I think GenCon can actually fix, the things that the city is going to have to fix, and the things that just might be unfixable. Okay, things that I probably didn't discuss in the other video. Here we go. Construction. It seems to be that Indianapolis, downtown specifically, is perpetually under construction. And I remember this being the case while Mike Pence was still the governor. Which, for those of you keeping track on the timeline, he was the governor before he was the vice president. And he hasn't been the vice president for like 4 years now. So, a while. Because you're talking the current president's term, the previous president's term where he was vice president, and then he was governor before that. So at least 7 years ago, 8 years ago, as of this recording, this has been a perpetual problem. And there seem to be the same spots. To me, it seems like it's the same spots over and over again. Like there's one specific spot that I don't understand how it's always under construction. Now, at the moment, part of that construction is an attempt to solve one of these problems, so I'm going to give that one a little leeway, but I'm talking like road construction. Also, since I brought up, Pence was governor, there used to be some kind of, and there might still be, this like some kind of motorcycle get-together thing that just seemed to coincidentally always be the weekend of GenCon for a good stretch there. And it just seemed like a very poor decision to have the largest convention the city has, and one of the largest events that the city has, with the only rivals, as far as events, being like the NCAA tournament and the 500. Now the 500 has far more people, but it also stretches over a longer period of time. But during those events, you don't have some other event that's going to clog up the downtown. Like, that's just stupid. But they did. It almost felt spiteful, I'm not going to lie. Because I'm sure it wasn't a coincidence that those weekends seemed to always line up. So yeah, the construction, it's a big problem. And I get part of the more recent construction is trying to finish Interstate 69 because it took a long time to get the southern part of it done. Well, done. It's still actually not quite complete all the way up to 465 just yet, but it's almost there. And then on the north side, they're reconfiguring where it takes off towards Fort Wayne because traffic exceeded all expectations, so they're making it a larger intersection. So yeah, you've got those problems like near constantly up there. And that does affect getting around the city. Now, parking is also an issue in my opinion. And I think there's a couple potential solutions. One would be to build a parking garage or two near the, near Lucas Oil Stadium, because Lucas Oil Stadium just kind of has a parking lot, and maybe a parking garage somewhere towards the end of like after the end of the stadium parking. Probably not where gate 10 parking is, unless gate 10 is going to build a parking garage, because I'm sure they don't want to lose their spot there. But there's got to be some buildings or land or something that no one owns or no one wants that they could take and build a parking garage there. And if possible, do the smart thing. Well, I say do the smart thing. I'm not a structural engineer or civil engineer. There might be a good reason why they don't do this, but have the parking lot also extend underground so you have more spots. But anyway, the other solution, and this is like a city solution, because I have to imagine that there's parking issues during the games at the football, baseball, or basketball facilities, or potentially for concerts, or just for people getting downtown, or for the other big conventions. And that would be to pick a spot outside of the downtown area and build a very large parking complex there, like very large or multiple, like 7-8 story tall parking garages, and then have a system of shuttles that go specifically to downtown. They'll have like 4, maybe 5 potential stops, depending on what the weekend is and what's going on. And like if it's a game weekend, then they're going to either the basketball, baseball, or football stadium or arena. And if it's like GenCon, then the convention center, and maybe just a generic like in front of the, like by the mall or by the government building, or maybe just the big bus terminal, but have just a handful of spots. That's the only place they'll go, and they'll run shuttles, every 10-15 minutes to that spot. And I think as a city that would be a smart move, because then you keep your traffic congestion somewhere farther out, and somewhere that you can better control it than trying to cram all the cars downtown. This kind of plays into a book I did a review on called Strong Towns. You folks should check it out. But essentially our downtown centers in any city are not built well at all. So yeah, that's, parking is an issue. And it's also a very expensive issue as it's getting up there. Unless you know where to park. Now this is I don't know how to fix this problem. And that is a lack of discounts and or deals in the dealer hall. Now this may just be me wishful thinking here, but if I'm going to go out of my way to spend all this money to go to GenCon, and let's be honest, the dealer's hall is a major, like, central factor in this thing, what's the driving force for me to pay retail there? I mean, there really isn't one. Because unless I like live overseas, which I don't, and it's cheaper for me to bring it back on my plane than to ship it, you know, there's just not many things that it's worth me paying retail for. Now, if it's something that I just can't find anyplace else, if it's a new release game straight from the company and it's like a couple months before it's going to be available at retail, okay, exclusivity has a value. I get that. If I buy it from the company and I get some kind of promo, even if it's just a trading card, something, anything, you know, I can justify to myself, well, you know, I got this cool thing and this is the only place I could ever get it. Even if I never use the cool thing, or if I sell the cool thing on eBay, doesn't matter. So, you know, if it's either hard to get, exclusive, or has a promo, okay. If it's something that's no longer available at retail, okay, that's also kind of a version of exclusivity. I'm sorry if it's making a noise. I have a cough drop in my mouth because my throat's bothering me here. And it's at the breakup stage. So, you know, with those three things now, because otherwise, if I'm going to pay retail, I'd probably rather support a local store than buy it there. And it doesn't have to be much of a discount. Okay, so say like, I'm going to use the example of Miniature Market because they show up there as a retailer and also have an online store. Now, I've never really run into a situation where I'm like, oh man, I can buy it cheaper on their online store than buying it right here at the convention. Because I usually just don't bring what I want to buy to the convention. So there's usually no problem with me there. But if there ever was, there'd be no reason for me to buy it at GenCon unless I was in a situation where I was like, well, I'll never hit the threshold for free shipping, so I've got to factor the shipping into account, in which case maybe this is going to be more. But with this particular example, Miniature Market offers steep discounts occasionally, so maybe not. And again, and I'm not saying that, you know, it's got to be like a flea market or anything. You know, it doesn't. And there are certain things that you're just not going to find discounts on. Like, it took me a while to find a copy of Terraforming Mars whenever around the time it originally came out, because everyone wanted it. It's a smaller company. They just weren't manufacturing tons and tons of them, so it was hard to find online, hard to find in stores. And once I did finally find one, I'm pretty sure I paid retail for it, just because I finally found a copy of the game. So, you know, you got a hot property like that, sure, you know, definitely. But the counter example is there are several booths that bring stuff that came out a decade ago or more, and they're thinking they're still going to get retail price for it. And I have one particular anecdote where my friend Chris and I, for like 3 or 4 years in a row, kept trying to convince this booth to sell us something that they kept bringing and kept at the same price as near as we could tell, which was very near retail. And we're like, guys, will you come down at all on this? It was an expansion to HeroClix, and they had no tournament value whatsoever, no real collector value whatsoever. The only value was going to be in potential doing what we were going to do, which was going to use them for booster drafts, just to have, you know, something, just to have some difference, some excitement, you know, and a cheap set that we could do that with. And it was a set that had come out 5-6 years before, and so after so many attempts, we just said, screw it, you know, like if these people aren't going to come down on this price, then they're fools, because it's costing them to move these boxes back and forth from their home base, which unless it's in a the center there in Indianapolis, which it was not, then they're having to pay storage on this thing. They're paying to move it back and forth. There's opportunity cost where they could have something else in its place that would actually sell. And past a certain point, they're definitely losing money on it. And every year they don't sell it, they're losing more money. So, to me, that's a terrible business model. And yeah, you just can't help people that refuse to be helped. So, that's something that kind of gets me. I think where possible, these booths should have, promos and stuff like that. And again, now that's like the manufacturer, like say your Catalyst games, and you got all your BattleTech stuff. Well, one of the big things they have is usually they've got stuff there, but that's the first place you can get it, and it could be months before that stuff's available elsewhere. I'll pay retail for that, and could be things that you can buy in quantities there that you can't buy anyplace else. That's a factor too, and other things. But it would be nice if they had some kind of promo. I mean anything, even if it's spend $100, get an urban mech. Okay, that's a $7 retail item, which means it costs them probably 20 cents to manufacture it, and so it's a gross overgeneralization. It probably costs them more than that once you factor in everything else. But the point is, they're not paying retail for it; they're charging retail for it. There's a difference, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be like, well, yeah, spend X amount of money, get this free little item, or a free pin, free just something, for spending a large amount of money. That would be great. I mean, I'm going to keep buying from them, I'm not saying I'm not, but that would be nice. But the fact that you got people like me saying I'm going to keep buying from them is the incentive why they don't do it. So some kind of promos are always nice. They used to have, essentially, it was a goodie bag that came with. That's where you got the coupon book. If I'm recalling correctly, it was in the bag, and then, or it might have been separate, but I think they were in the bag. But you also got like random magic cards, just a whole bunch of other stuff. Now most of that stuff just wound up in the trash. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, not my versions. I still got that crap laying around everywhere. But, it added to the feel that you were getting a little bit more for your dollar, just for showing up, which was nice. I'm not saying that's a make or break thing, and definitely if they were ever going to bring that back, it'd be nice if there was something of consequence in there. Like, I don't know, maybe GenCon commissions someone like Goodman Games to do like a 5-page adventure that's kind of light on artwork and it's heavy text, so it's cheap to print up, and throw that in there, just something, anything. So yeah, the lack of deals, it's kind of a thing. I'm not a big fan of it. So anyway, on to backpacks, wagons, and strollers. These people annoy the ever-loving crap out of me. And, like, the stroller, okay. I'm not going to be the guy that's going to sit here and say, don't bring your kids to GenCon. But, maybe, don't bring, like, something that you would, in the olden days, would have been a horse-drawn carriage to push them around in. Like, some of these strollers are ridiculous. In the last year, I saw a few that if I were standing up, which if you met me, I'm just a little over 6 feet tall, just for the record, because I'm usually sitting down, and the few people that have, a couple of people that have met me that have seen the videos were, I think, surprised as tall as I was. And Jim's a little bit taller than me. So, they come up like to about here. So we're talking almost 5 feet, or right around 5 feet high. Excuse me. That is ridiculous. And the only saving grace is the fact that, well, it's so tall, there's no way I could possibly miss it and trip over it. But at the same time, like, it's a battering ram. That's not a baby stroller. I don't even know if you've got a baby in there, because the thing's also like a couple feet wide and like 3 or 4 feet long. There might not be a kid in there at all. That might just be your wagon to haul your crap around in. Which, I mean, I guess kudos for cheating the system. Like, it's a bunch of gamers. Of course someone's going to game the system. But, like, that's ridiculous. Like, what is that for? And then the regular strollers, You can't see them because they're down below, and your vision is at head level. Excuse me, because you're trying to watch the other people so you don't run into people. Unless you're one of those rubbernecking looky-loos that doesn't care and just stops randomly and, all that kind of stuff. And then there's the giant backpacks that extend like 1.5 feet off your back. So whenever you swing around, you take out like 5 people. Or whenever you just suddenly stop, people run right into your back and, things like that. I mean, I've definitely been hit by them before. So, and, yeah. And this is kind of along with that, yet separate. I didn't write this one down, but now that the creative juices are flowing here, rude people. I mean, just in general, I don't like people that act like assholes, but especially in a big crowded area there. Like last year, I actually had someone trying to shove their way through, and I shoved back. Like, I wasn't going to be having any of that bullshit. And I doubt he heard me over the crowd, but I had a comment, something to the effect of, what the hell are you doing, dude? Like, you're not shoving past me. I'm sorry. You're 5 foot nothing, and you're not getting past me. So yeah, rude people. And they come in all shapes and sizes at GenCon, but a lot of it has to do with pushing and shoving. Yeah, that's where a lot of it comes in, or at least a lot of it that I seem to interact with. Never really had many rude people like at the booths, because they're at least smart enough to know, hey, we need to interact here on a social level and we got to sell stuff, So, and never really like with the event staff beyond the people that are like, hey, make a line, there's got to be a fire lane, and I get it because they're not there to have a discussion, they're there to get shit done. So, you got to take a no-nonsense approach occasionally, but a slightly lighter touch, just saying, guys, like, catch more flies with honey than vinegar. But, yeah. So, now there, I have no idea what the solution to it. Well, the solution to rude people, that's not, civil society doesn't allow the real solution to rude people. So, we're not going to discuss it here. But as far as the other, I think that if there were an on-site storage facility somehow, I don't know how that would work, so I don't really want to propose it. Like a bag check just wouldn't work, it's just too many people. You'd basically have to devote like another wing of the building to that. But maybe they could set up shop over in the mall since it's dying. That'd be the Circle Center Mall, by the way. There used to be lockers, like they have it like at a bus station, where, you put a coin in, you take the key, and, after you put your stuff in, you take the key, and then it's locked till you bring the key back. And my friend Chris and I would go down there Wednesday night before the show and get a locker, and we'd just bring quarters with us. We'd just keep the locker the whole week. And that would allow us to dump off our heavy stuff. Now, essentially what we do is we take it over to the car, and this kind of falls under another satellite of problems. But if there were something like that there, I have no idea how many they would need or where they would put them, other than maybe in the tunnel over to Lucas Oil, because there's that whole big long wall. There's nothing there. I suppose maybe they count that as artwork, though, so maybe not. But something like that would alleviate that problem, I think. So anyway, moving on. Now with the death of the mall food court, I think there's still 2 or 3 places left last time I checked, but by and large it's dead. There's a lack of cheap places to eat around there. Now the food trucks themselves, they vary in price. Some of them you can get out of there at $10, but you're probably lucky if you do. Most of them, I think, fall into like the $15 to $20 range, which, I mean, for those of you out there that live in cities, like, that's what lunch costs. And since I do actually travel outside of southern Indiana, I'm well aware of this fact. However, people from tiny towns like the one I live in, like, to them that's an absurd price. And, there's probably nothing to be done about that. Although one year there was a food truck where it was literally like a dad and his 2 kids. They just had like a couple grills from Walmart in the back of the truck, and they were just making hamburgers and hot dogs, selling for like $5 or $6. So, just a shout out to all you food truck guys and gals, and everything else. Might want to consider that as an option. If you see a cheap food truck laying around and you can pay all the inspectors and everything, might be able to go cheap. But maybe not. I mean, the other trucks sell out, so maybe it's not as big as a concern as I'm making it out to be. Because I plan on spending quite a bit of money on food when I go there, because I'm also a food tourist of sorts. So, this year I really need to take pictures of the food trucks I go to, and I'll try to post them as the convention's going, so people can see what we're getting into and prices and things like that. But with the mall food court gone, like there you could get, like at the Chinese place, you get, I think it was like a couple entree things and an egg roll and a drink, and it was like $9. It was filling. It was a whole plate of food. It was filling. It was decent. I mean, it's mall Chinese food. It's not great. But it's not, say, as sketchy as gas station sushi or anything. Yeah, it was decent. I think the Italian place is still open last time I was there, and it's got a similar pricing scheme. I think $10, $12 per what you're paying there, and you'll get a couple good slices of pizza and breadsticks and stuff. And in that range, you still have hot box pizza, which I think is like $6 a slice, but it's a gigantic slice. So 2 of those and a drink, or if you're going to be frequenting the food area, just get the Wild Bill's cup and just keep refilling it if you can handle soda. So, otherwise, there's not really any options beyond maybe somehow the convention center offering something, but I don't see that ever happening. The convention center could definitely use some diversity in its choices, though. That would be nice. Don't know how you do that in a fast food setting, because they're like generic places. Not like McDonald's. It's like hamburger place, like pizza place, and hot dog place. So, and kind of in line with that, it would be really swell if the places in the convention center would accept cash and not card only. Just because I know there are people who anticipate wanting to pay cash for the things in the dealer's hall, thinking they might get a deal, and occasionally that does happen. And so they have a lot of cash on them. Then they get there and it's like, oh, you got to use your card. And like, oh, well, I emptied my account. It's all here in my wallet, which isn't the greatest idea on earth, but it happens. Or I only brought cash because I don't want to get robbed and lose all my stuff. It's a valid concern. I don't think Kenny's crime problem is that big, but there are reasons why people don't carry cards with them. And so I think it's foolish to not accept cash, although I'm also a huge proponent of cash still being a thing. I'm saying this as someone that doesn't carry much cash on me. But society trying to go cashless, I think, is a tremendous problem that's well outside the scope of this video, but I am not for it. So, suffice to say. So the one other thing, before I get into the problems that the other gentleman expanded upon, is that the bathroom facilities past like day 2 become like an ongoing apocalyptic horror movie. And I don't know what the problem is, because they clearly have all kinds of staff on hand. And clearly they can clean them, because day 1, they're all very clean. Day 2, they're still generally clean. Day 3, it looks like some of the worst parts of the Bible happened in some of them. And day 4 is not an improvement. And I don't understand where things go wrong in this equation. But it seems to happen every year. And that's why I keep my eye on a couple of restrooms that people don't seem to know exist in the convention center, and I stick to them because they're not frequented, so they stay clean. But I don't know where things go wrong there, but I wish the convention center would collectively get its act together and figure it out. So, to the other issues that were already mentioned in the other video, the crowds. Yes, it is more crowded than it was 10 years ago. I imagine this year will be back to peak levels. And there isn't really anything to be done about that other than what the other gentleman proposed, which is capping attendance, which already does happen. I just don't want to see it capped at 50,000 because I think that will cause that won't solve the problem, in my opinion. Because the big problem is there are certain vendors, there are certain areas that they can only get because of that sheer number of people. And so if we reduce the number of people, we're going to reduce the area we have to work with, and I think we're going to have like that same density and basically the same problems. We're just going to be in a smaller area with fewer things to choose from. So I don't think that will alleviate the problem. I think like 70,000, maybe, because the cap was around like 75, 77. So if you lower it a little bit, I don't think you're going to lose any space or any vendors. Excuse me, but you're going to gain a little bit of breathing room. So I could maybe get behind that until they build the other hotel and add more space. I think that another possible solution would be to figure out where to relocate the gaming hall. Take it, move it, expand the dealer's hall all the way to take up that whole space. Now I know GenCon, it's a for-profit corporation, so they're going to try to rent out every single square inch they can, but I think that would allow them to expand the rows, make the booths a little bit bigger if they want to, or gain more space between them, and so on and so on, which would allow crowds to flow through better. That's my opinion. I don't know for sure if that would actually work because I can't see the future, but I think that would work. Then event capacity is a problem because it doesn't seem like the events that singular events like scale up. Like they're like, it seems like whoever's going to run the D&D, which is never Wizards of the Coast anymore, it seems like they've got a fixed number of people they're going to have to run it. So it doesn't really matter if there's 50,000 or 70,000 or 80,000 people. There's a set number of D&D games, and it just doesn't seem to scale up. And that's a problem that Gen Con can't fix, because that's a problem with finding people to run the games. I know where the problem there is. And so it doesn't scale up, which means instead of trying to find more D&D games, you just have to find other games. So that's a problem. There are apparently some various problems with people like buying tickets to events or getting tickets, especially in the case of free events, and then never showing up, which that prevents other people from playing that would. But if I'm understanding correctly, also prevents the people running the games from getting the money that's been paid. I don't know why it just randomly goes back to Gen Con. If I'm understanding that correctly, and I might not be. If anyone knows, tell me down in the comments that I'm getting that wrong. So you have where people are paying for events, people are setting up for events with anticipating that 10 people are going to show up, and then like 6 of them show up. But the other 4 paid for the event. It's just the guy that's setting, or gal that's setting it up, isn't getting paid that money. Gen Con's is kind of keeping it, if I understand everything correctly. So that's a problem. Like, if I buy tickets to a movie and I don't show up and I don't get a refund somehow, the movie theater's keeping the money. Like, this is going to them. And I don't get it back. The studio doesn't magically get it. Like, I paid the theater's keeping the money. So, I don't know. If I'm understanding that part correctly from what I've seen in comments anyway. I don't know the solution there, because the problem, like, I think part of the problem is that payment thing I mentioned, which is preventing other people from wanting to run games that aren't part of, like, say, I don't know, like Goodman Games or WizKids or whoever, or WizKids or Wizards of the Coast, whoever. And so if you're just like an individual, you don't want to sink a bunch of time and money into it knowing that people can buy tickets and then not show up, and then you don't get the money. preventing other people from showing up. So that is a problem. That's a Gen Con needs to like modernize. And I think part of the solution there is to make it so that the tickets are all digital on the badges. And so that way you can do something like set up so like you put yourself on a waiting list, okay? And like say the thing takes 10 people and you show up and there's like a 5-minute grace period. Like it says it's supposed to start at 7:05. If you're not there and someone with a backup is, they can take your spot. Once it scans it, then they get charged for the ticket automatically on the card they've got on file, and everything just moves on its way. Something like that, I think, is the solution. So, you know, we'll see, but that's what I would do. And then, yeah, I mean, then there's the hotels, you know. As the other gentleman did correctly point out, there's not enough hotel space downtown for everybody. And the solution to that is more hotels, and they are building more. But I don't think it's never going to be enough. You know, you're always going to have people that are going to be staying elsewhere. So, but it is, you know, it's a potential issue. So, I just, you know, again, I don't think that the whole capping attendance thing was the solution there. But yeah, that's the bulk of what I have issues with there at Gen Con, and I see, at least by the counter here, even though I'm going to edit some parts of this out, this video still managed to stretch over 30 minutes, even with the list to keep things concise. So that's what I get for adding things to it. But anyway, none of those make it sound like, oh, I'm not going. Now, if the prices keep escalating, then that might eventually become an issue where I say I'm only going 1 or 2 days instead of all 4. Which will be a shame, because I'm probably still going to end up buying a 4-day badge, because in case you have never actually looked at the breakdown, if you go Saturday and any other day but Sunday, then you may as well just buy a 4-day badge. Usually, I'll have to double check the pricing, but that's usually how it breaks down. If you're only going 1 day, go Sunday, because it's dirt cheap. You're going to miss some things, but you know, if you've never been, give you an idea what it's like. So anyway, those are the issues I have. If you stuck around through all this, thanks. And keep an eye out, because the event stuff will happen next month in May. So keep an eye out for that. And one of the other guys might want to also do a video like this, let you know what they dislike about it, because I know they have their various thoughts. So let's see how that goes. And we're still trying to smooth things out as far as all of our respective schedules, and that's proving to be a stickier situation than anticipated. And I keep running into problems with trying to get it hooked up so that I can get everyone like digitally there, and that might end up being the solution. So we'll see how that all pans out. But anyway, thank you folks for watching. Let me know down in the comments, you know, what kind of complaints you have, what upsides you have. If you've not been, are you going this year? If you've been, are you going again? You know, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to meet up at all, let us know, and we will probably wait till after we have our event schedules, so then we know what our time frame is looking like. And I mean, whenever I say meet up, it's probably going to be in the convention center, you know, say hi, meet face to face, shake hands, maybe take pictures, you know, record some video or something. I suppose we could potentially all agree to go eat somewhere. Now, to be crystal clear, we don't make any money off these videos, so I'm not offering to buy everybody food. So just want to make sure I'm clear on that fact. But we won't go someplace stupidly expensive unless everyone really wants to. Then, yeah, well, I'll talk about it after the events. I've got a possible idea. But anyway, if anyone wants to meet up. So anyway, thank you folks for watching, and see you out there.